Hey everyone, welcome back to the English Leap podcast, your podcast for easy English conversation, real daily life talk, and simple listening practice.
I'm Jake.
And I'm Anna. So Jake, it's almost the weekend. Do you have any plans?
Honestly, not really. Probably the same thing I do every weekend. Wake up late, feel a bit guilty about waking up late, and then spend the day trying to recover from the week.
That's such a relatable weekend plan. Recovering from the week, but somehow also feeling more tired by Sunday night than you did on Friday.
Exactly. Isn't that strange? The weekend is supposed to be for resting, but sometimes Sunday evening hits and I feel worse than before.
I think a lot of people feel this, and that's actually a perfect way into today's topic. Today we're talking about weekend habits that make you happier. Small, simple things you can do on your weekend that actually leave you feeling refreshed instead of exhausted or empty.
Yes, because a good weekend isn't really about doing nothing or doing everything. It's about doing the right small things.
And of course, we'll connect this to English learning too, because weekends are actually a great time for relaxed, low-pressure English practice.
Before we start, quick reminder, if you enjoy this episode, please like, subscribe, and share it with a friend.
And tell us in the comments, what does your typical weekend look like? That's great writing practice too.
Even one or two simple sentences in the comments is genuinely helpful practice, and we really do read them.
Yeah, some of the stories you all share are honestly more interesting than the topics we plan ourselves.
True, we've actually gotten a few episode ideas straight from listener comments.
So don't be shy. Write something, even if your English isn't perfect. This is exactly the safe, friendly place to practice.
Okay, let's get into it. So Anna, why do you think so many of us finish the weekend feeling more tired instead of refreshed?
I think it's because we treat the weekend like an empty space that needs to be filled completely, either with a lot of activities or with a lot of nothing.
Right, some people overplan the weekend. Errands, chores, social events all packed into 2 days, and by Sunday night they're exhausted.
And other people do the opposite. They spend the whole weekend on the sofa scrolling on their phone, and somehow that also leaves them feeling drained and a little empty.
Interesting. So both extremes, too busy or too passive, can leave us feeling worse.
Exactly. The happiest weekends usually have a mix, some rest, some movement, some connection with people, and a little bit of doing something meaningful.
So today we'll go through a few small weekend habits that create that balance.
Actually, before we get into the list, let me tell you about my own worst weekend habit, the one I'm trying to fix.
Oh, please, go on.
Okay, so my old Saturday routine used to be wake up late, feel guilty about waking up late, pick up my phone, and then somehow stay in bed for another hour just scrolling.
The classic 5 more minutes that becomes an hour.
Exactly. And by the time I actually got up, half the day already felt gone, and I hadn't even done anything relaxing, just scrolled through other people's lives.
That's such an interesting point. Scrolling feels like resting, but it usually doesn't actually feel restful afterward.
Right, it's passive, but somehow still tiring. My brain would feel foggy, not refreshed by the time I finally got out of bed.
I have a similar story actually, but with weekend chores instead of scrolling. I used to try to fit every single errand and chore into Saturday, cleaning, shopping, laundry, fixing things, all in one day.
That sounds exhausting.
It was. By Saturday evening, I felt like I had just finished a second work week, and then Sunday, I'd feel too drained to do anything enjoyable at all.
So really, we were both making the same mistake in different directions. You did too much. I did too little of the right things.
Exactly, and that's honestly why we wanted to make this episode. Somewhere between doing everything and doing nothing is a small set of habits that actually works.
I think that's really the heart of today's topic. Not a strict schedule and not total emptiness, but a handful of small, intentional habits that fit naturally into 2 days.
Right, small enough that they don't feel like more work, but meaningful enough that you actually notice the difference by Sunday evening.
Let's go through them one by one. Let's start with mornings. On weekdays, mornings are usually rushed. Alarm, coffee, rushing out the door.
Right, no time to actually enjoy anything.
But on the weekend, try having one slow morning. Wake up without rushing, and importantly, don't check your phone for the first 20 or 30 minutes.
Oh, that's a hard one for a lot of people, including me sometimes.
I know, but starting the day with messages, notifications, and news can immediately put your brain into stress mode even on a day meant to rest.
So instead, maybe just make your coffee or tea slowly, sit by a window, or just stretch a little without any screen.
Even 15 calm minutes like this can set a completely different tone for the whole day.
I actually tried this myself a few months ago after struggling with exactly the phone scrolling in bed habit you mentioned earlier.
Oh, really? How did it go?
Honestly, the first weekend felt strange. I kept reaching for my phone out of habit, almost automatically, even though I had decided not to check it.
That sounds like a very normal reaction, especially since checking the phone first thing is such a strong habit for most of us.
Right, but by the third or fourth weekend, it started to feel much more natural. I noticed I felt calmer and less rushed during that first hour of the day.
That's a great example of how even a slow morning habit needs a little patience before it fully clicks.
Exactly, and now it's honestly one of my favorite parts of the weekend, that quiet, phone-free start. Here's another simple one. Spend at least a little time outside, even if it's just a short walk in your neighborhood.
Yes, fresh air and natural light genuinely affect our mood. Even 20 minutes outside can make a real difference.
And it doesn't need to be a big hiking trip or anything complicated. Even sitting outside with a cup of tea counts.
Right, the goal isn't adventure. The goal is just a little contact with the outside world, away from screens and indoor walls.
I noticed that on weekends when I stay indoors the entire time, I usually feel more tired and a little low by the evening.
Same here. It's a small habit, but it really does add up to a happier weekend.
I actually started a small ritual because of this. Every Saturday, I sit outside for 10 minutes with my coffee. No phone, just watching the street, the trees, whatever's around.
That sounds so peaceful.
It really is. At first, it felt a little boring, honestly, just sitting there. But now it's become one of my favorite parts of the whole week.
I think that's interesting because a lot of relaxing habits feel a little strange or boring at first, especially if we're used to constant stimulation from screens.
Right. Our brains sometimes need a little time to adjust to slower, quieter moments before they start to feel enjoyable instead of uncomfortable.
So, if a slow outdoor moment feels a bit odd the first time you try it, that's completely normal. Give it a few weekends before deciding it's not for you.
Let's quickly go through a few common mistakes people make with their weekends so you can avoid them.
First mistake, over-planning every single hour. When your weekend calendar is completely full, there's no room to actually enjoy anything. You're just moving from task to task.
Second mistake, comparing your weekend to other people's weekends online. Someone else's exciting trip photos don't mean your quiet, simple weekend at home is somehow less than.
Right. A calm weekend at home can be just as valuable, sometimes even more restorative than a busy trip.
Third mistake, using the whole weekend to catch up on work. It's tempting, especially when you're behind, but constantly working through the weekend removes the mental break you actually need to come back to work refreshed.
And fourth mistake, feeling guilty for resting. So many people feel like they need to earn rest by being busy first.
Right, but rest doesn't need to be earned. It's a basic part of staying healthy and happy, not a reward you unlock after enough hard work.
Avoiding these few mistakes alone can already make your weekends feel noticeably better.
And honestly, most of us do at least one or two of these mistakes without even realizing it, myself included.
Same here. That chore-packed Saturday habit I mentioned took me a long time to actually notice, let alone change.
So this isn't about judging yourself for these patterns. It's just useful to notice them so you can slowly shift towards something that feels better.
Another happiness habit, spend real, focused time with someone you care about, even briefly.
This could be a phone call with a family member, lunch with a friend, or just sitting and talking with someone at home without phones nearby.
Human connection is one of the strongest, most consistent sources of happiness that research keeps pointing back to.
Right, and weekends often give us the free time that weekdays don't, so it's a natural opportunity to actually use it for connection.
Even one good, honest conversation can make the whole weekend feel more meaningful.
I remember one Sunday I called my grandmother, just for maybe 20 minutes, nothing special, just talking about her garden and some old family stories.
That sounds lovely.
It was such a small thing, but I felt genuinely happier the rest of that day, much happier than if I had just watched another episode of something on my own.
That's a great example, and it doesn't have to be a deep, serious conversation either. Sometimes just laughing about something silly with a friend does the same job.
Right, the connection matters more than the topic.
And I think it's worth saying this doesn't need to be a long conversation either. Even a 10-minute chat, if it's genuine and focused, without checking your phone every few minutes, counts.
Right, quality really does matter more than quantity here. A short, present conversation often feels more meaningful than a long one where both people are half distracted.
So if your weekend feels busy, don't cross this habit off completely. Just shrink it down to a size that fits.
Here's an interesting one. Doing one small task you've been avoiding, like answering an email, fixing something small at home, or organizing one drawer.
That sounds like it would add stress, not happiness.
That's what I thought too at first, but finishing even one small avoided task often creates a surprising feeling of relief and lightness.
Oh, I actually understand that. It's like a small weight lifting off your mind, even if the task itself was tiny.
Exactly, and it's different from working the whole weekend. It's just one small task, not your whole to-do list.
Right. One task, not 10. That keeps it from turning into another stressful, productive weekend trap.
I actually did this last weekend. I had an email sitting in my inbox for almost 2 weeks, one I kept avoiding because I didn't know exactly what to write.
That familiar feeling of an email just sitting there, quietly bothering you in the back of your mind.
Exactly. So on Saturday morning, I just wrote it, even though it wasn't perfect, and sent it. It took maybe 10 minutes total.
And how did you feel afterward?
Surprisingly light, actually. That small, unfinished task had been taking up more mental space than it deserved, just sitting there, unfinished.
That's such a common experience. Small, unfinished things often feel much bigger in our minds than they actually are in reality.
Right, and finishing even one of them can free up a surprising amount of mental energy for the rest of the weekend.
This next one is important. Do something purely for enjoyment, with no goal or productivity attached.
Like what exactly?
Drawing badly on purpose. Dancing in your kitchen, playing a game, cooking something new just because it sounds fun, not because it's healthy or useful.
I think a lot of adults forget how to do this. Everything starts to feel like it needs a purpose or a result.
Right, but joy for its own sake is actually really important for happiness. It reminds your brain that not everything needs to be productive to be worthwhile.
I like that a lot. Sometimes the most refreshing thing is doing something with zero goal at all.
For me, this is usually baking something a little messy and imperfect just because it sounds good, not because I'm trying to become a great baker.
For me, it's usually playing an old video game I loved as a kid, something with absolutely no self-improvement purpose at all.
I love that. It sounds almost rebellious doing something just because it's fun.
Right, in a world where everything gets turned into a goal or a skill to build, doing something purely for enjoyment can feel surprisingly freeing.
And I think that's exactly why it makes people happier. It gives your mind a genuine break from constant self-improvement mode.
We don't need a big workout here, just a little natural movement. Dancing, stretching, a walk, even cleaning while playing music.
Movement releases feel-good chemicals in the brain, and even light movement on the weekend can boost your mood noticeably.
And because it's the weekend, there's no pressure of a proper workout. Just move a little, in whatever way feels enjoyable.
I have a slightly funny confession here. My favorite weekend movement habit is dancing badly in my kitchen while cooking.
Is there a video of this anywhere?
Absolutely not, and there never will be. But honestly, 5 minutes of silly dancing while the food cooks puts me in such a better mood than sitting still would.
That's a great example, because it shows movement doesn't need to look impressive or correct. It just needs to happen.
Exactly. Nobody's grading your dancing skills. The goal is just to move your body and enjoy a small burst of energy.
I think a lot of people avoid movement on weekends because they imagine it has to mean a serious gym session. But a 5-minute dance, a short walk, or even some stretching while watching a show all count.
Right. And honestly, movement combined with something you already enjoy, like music or a favorite show, rarely feels like exercise at all. It just feels like a pleasant part of your day.
That's probably the real secret here. The moment movement feels like a chore, motivation drops, but paired with something fun, it barely feels like effort.
Here's a quieter one. Spend a few minutes reflecting on your week. What went well, what you're proud of, what you want to do differently.
This doesn't need to be long or serious. Even 3 or 4 simple sentences, written or just thought through, is enough.
This small habit helps you close the previous week properly, instead of carrying leftover stress straight into the new one.
It's like a mental full stop at the end of a sentence before starting a new one.
I actually do this on Sunday evenings too. Just 3 quick lines in a notebook. One thing that went well, one thing that was hard, and one thing I'm looking forward to.
That's a nice, simple structure.
It takes maybe 5 minutes, but it genuinely helps me feel like the week has a proper ending, instead of just fading into the next one without any real reflection.
I think a lot of our stress actually comes from carrying unfinished thoughts and feelings from one week straight into the next without ever really processing them.
Right, and this small habit gives those thoughts somewhere to go, even if it's just 3 short lines in a notebook.
Here's a habit that sounds like it belongs on a weekday, but actually fits nicely on Sunday. Preparing just a little for the week ahead.
Not a full plan, not a stressful to-do list, just one small thing. Maybe choosing your clothes for Monday or writing down your top task for the week.
This small habit can lower that heavy Sunday night dread feeling a lot of people get before a new week starts.
Right, because part of Monday already feels handled, your Sunday evening can stay calmer instead of anxious.
It's a strange one because it sounds like work, but it actually protects your rest rather than reducing it.
I started doing this a few months ago too, mostly by accident. I began laying out my clothes on Sunday evening, just because I was tired of deciding what to wear in a rush on Monday morning.
And did it actually change how your Sunday evening felt?
Surprisingly, yes. It became this small closing ritual, and after doing it, I felt like my mind could actually relax for the rest of the evening, instead of quietly worrying about tomorrow.
That's such a small action to have that kind of effect.
Right, but I think it works because it removes one small decision from your tired Monday morning brain and gives your Sunday night brain a clear signal that things are handled. And one more small favorite of mine, eating at least one meal on the weekend, slowly, without a rush, and ideally without a screen in front of you.
Oh, this is a good one. During the week, I usually eat lunch in about 7 minutes, standing at my desk.
Right. Weekday meals often become just fuel, eaten quickly between tasks.
But one slow, relaxed meal on the weekend, maybe with music playing or with a person you enjoy talking to, can feel surprisingly special.
It's a small reminder that eating can be an enjoyable experience, not just a quick task to finish.
I remember one Sunday, my partner and I cooked a fairly simple meal together. Nothing fancy, but we put on some music, lit a candle, and actually sat and talked while eating.
That sounds really nice.
It was such a small thing, honestly, maybe 30 extra minutes compared to a normal meal, but it made the whole evening feel more special.
I think that's the pattern we keep seeing throughout this whole episode. It's rarely about doing something completely new or impressive. It's about slowing down for something ordinary and giving it a little more attention.
Right, a meal, a walk, a conversation. None of these are unusual activities. The happiness comes from doing them without a rush. I like that. A meal without a rush, at least once a weekend.
Let's connect this to English learning too. Weekends are a relaxed, low-pressure time to build small English habits.
You could watch one short English video with subtitles, listen to a podcast like ours during a walk, or write a few sentences about your weekend so far, in simple English, just for practice.
Since there's less pressure than during the week, these moments often end up being the ones where English actually starts to feel enjoyable instead of stressful. Let's clear up a couple of myths about weekends before we continue.
Yes, go ahead.
Myth 1. A good weekend means doing as little as possible. Total rest sounds nice, but as we said earlier, too much passive time, like endless scrolling, often leaves people feeling worse, not better.
Right, some gentle activity and connection are usually needed too, not just rest.
Myth 2. A good weekend means being productive the whole time. This is the opposite trap, treating Saturday and Sunday like extra work days.
Right, like my old chore-packed Saturdays. That's not rest, that's just unpaid overtime.
Exactly. Myth 3. You need a big trip or big plans to have a happy weekend. Actually, as we've shown today, small, simple habits often create more consistent happiness than occasional big trips.
Big trips are wonderful, of course, but you can't do one every weekend. Small habits, though, you can repeat every single week.
And here's a fourth myth. Happiness on the weekend just happens naturally, without any effort. Actually, as we've seen today, a little intention, even just choosing 1 or 2 small habits, makes a real difference.
Right, it's not that you need to plan every minute, but leaving everything completely to chance often means the weekend just slips by without much thought at all.
A small amount of intention without turning into a rigid schedule seems to be the real balance point. A listener asked us, what if my weekends are full of family responsibilities and I don't have much free time at all?
That's a really honest question, and a common one. The good news is, these habits don't need large blocks of time.
Right. Even 5 minutes of quiet reflection, or a 2-minute phone call, or stepping outside for a few minutes between tasks still counts.
The size can shrink to fit your real life. What matters is including a few of these small moments even inside a busy, responsibility-filled weekend.
Small doesn't mean insignificant, remember. It means realistic and doable, exactly what we talked about in our very first episode on small habits.
Actually, this reminds me of a message we got from a listener a while back.
Oh, tell us.
He said his weekends used to feel completely wasted. He'd wake up late, feel guilty, spend hours online, and by Sunday night he felt anxious and tired, dreading Monday.
That sounds exactly like the trap we talked about earlier.
Right. So he decided to try just 2 small things. One short walk outside each weekend day and 1 phone-free meal. Nothing else changed.
Just 2 small habits?
Just 2. And after a few weekends, he wrote to us saying he genuinely felt calmer by Sunday evening for the first time in a long while.
That's such a great example of how small, specific changes, not a complete life overhaul, can shift how a whole weekend feels.
He didn't need a big trip, a new hobby, or a strict schedule. Just 2 small, repeatable habits.
It really proves the point of today's episode. Happier weekends usually come from small, consistent choices, not from big, occasional events.
We also got this question. What if my job requires me to work on weekends sometimes? Can these habits still help?
Great question, and yes, absolutely. These habits aren't really about having a completely free 2 days. They're about protecting small pockets of time within whatever schedule you actually have.
Right. Even someone working part of their weekend can still find 15 minutes for a phone-free coffee or a short walk between tasks.
The size and timing can shift completely to match your real schedule. The core idea, small, intentional moments instead of a completely packed or completely empty day, still applies.
Exactly. This isn't about a perfect, ideal weekend. It's about finding small moments of calm and joy inside whatever weekend you actually have. One more thing worth mentioning. Not every habit fits every person the same way, and that's completely okay.
Right. If you're more introverted, spending your whole weekend around lots of people might actually leave you feeling more tired, not happier.
In that case, the connection habit might mean one short, quiet conversation rather than a big social gathering.
And if you're more extroverted, maybe you need a bit more social time on your weekend to actually feel recharged, compared to someone who prefers quiet alone time.
So feel free to adjust the size and the style of each habit to match your own personality and energy levels.
The core idea stays the same, small, intentional choices, but the exact shape of those choices can look a little different for everyone.
That's actually a really important reminder. These aren't strict rules, they're flexible starting points.
Right, and the same applies to timing too. Some people feel happiest with a slow Saturday and a slightly more active Sunday, while others prefer it the other way around.
There's no single correct order. The goal is simply to notice what actually leaves you feeling calmer and happier and lean into that, rather than following someone else's ideal weekend.
That's such a helpful mindset. Less about following a perfect formula, more about paying attention to your own results. Let's put this all together into one simple, realistic weekend plan.
One slow, phone-free morning, a little time outside, one real conversation with someone you care about, one small, avoided task finished, one purely fun activity, a little movement, a few minutes of quiet reflection.
That's not a busy schedule, notice. It's just small, meaningful moments spread naturally through your weekend.
Exactly. You don't need to do all 7 every weekend either. Even picking 2 or 3 can make a real difference.
I spent my morning without checking my phone.
We went for a short walk outside together.
I finally finished that small task I was avoiding.
I did something fun today just for myself.
This weekend felt calm and refreshing.
Let's also try a couple of slightly longer sentences.
Even though I had a lot of responsibilities, I still found 5 minutes to relax outside.
Instead of scrolling on my phone, I called my grandmother and we talked for 20 minutes.
I prepared my clothes for Monday, so my Sunday evening felt calmer.
Try repeating one of these sentences out loud today and maybe changing a small detail to match your own weekend.
Let's review a few useful words from today's episode.
First, to feel drained. This means feeling very tired with no energy left, like your energy has been poured out of you.
For example, I felt drained after scrolling on my phone all morning.
Next, low pressure. This describes something relaxed, without stress or strict expectations.
For example, weekend English practice feels low pressure compared to studying for an exam.
We also use the phrase Sunday night dread, meaning that anxious, heavy feeling some people get before the new work week starts.
For example, I used to feel a lot of Sunday night dread, but preparing a little on Sunday helps reduce it.
And finally, to recharge, meaning to rest and get your energy back, like charging a phone battery.
For example, I need this weekend to recharge before next week starts.
One more useful phrase, to put something off, meaning to delay or avoid doing something.
For example, I finally stopped putting off that email and just wrote it.
And to unwind, meaning to relax and let go of stress after a busy period.
For example, a slow, phone-free morning really helps me unwind after a long week.
Try using one of these words today in a sentence about your own weekend.
We talked about slow mornings, time outside, real connection, finishing small tasks, doing something purely fun, gentle movement, quiet reflection, preparing a little for Monday, and eating at least one relaxed meal.
That's 9 small weekend habits in total. But remember, you don't need all 9 every single weekend.
Right. Even choosing 2 or 3 that genuinely fit your life can already shift how your weekend feels and how you feel walking into Monday.
We also talked about common mistakes like over-planning, comparing your weekend to others, working through your rest time, and feeling guilty for resting at all.
And we talked about adjusting these habits based on your own personality, whether you recharge through quiet time or through connection with people.
Small, simple weekend habits, not a packed schedule, that actually leave you feeling happier by Sunday night.
Before we close, one last small tip. Try picking just one habit from today's list and testing it for the next 2 weekends in a row before adding anything else.
Right. Just like with any small habit, trying to add all 9 at once will probably feel overwhelming, and you'll likely end up doing none of them.
One at a time, tested over a couple of weekends, gives you a much better, calmer chance of actually keeping it going.
And once that first habit feels natural and easy, you can always add a second one.
This same slow, patient approach is honestly the whole spirit of this podcast. Small, realistic steps repeated consistently, instead of big, overwhelming changes that rarely last. Whether it's habits, English learning, or just how you spend your weekend, the pattern really is the same everywhere.
Next time, we're going back to a topic close to our first episode, how to talk about your weekend in English in a natural, easy way, using some of the ideas from today.
So if you've ever been asked, how was your weekend? And only managed to say, it was fine, this next episode will give you plenty of better, more natural answers.
Perfect timing, too, since you'll actually have some new, happier weekend habits to talk about.
True. We've basically given you the content and the English phrases to describe it all in the same couple of episodes.
If you enjoyed this episode, like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, which weekend habit will you try this week?
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye!
Bye!